part to improve the air quality in the San Joaquin.
Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. Fresno, California. It's an awesome place. I was just talking to someone before we came on the show today, and I often open the show saying Fresno's the heart of the Central Valley, and the Central Valley's the heart of the state of California. And he was sharing that same thought with me. So, there's some consciousness out there. Having been here for close to 30 years now, it's amazing. It's amazing what's going on here, the energy, the vitality, the creation, the creativeness. It's a great place to be. And I'm glad you're with us today. Ended up taking a couple weeks off, holidays, Thanksgiving, and so on. But before we left, the last show we did, I was talking about the law. And I was sharing some thoughts from a correspondence course that Ernest Holmes put out years ago, and then was subsequently published in a 6-volume set that were titled, it was called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. They went out of print several years ago, and the latest version of it is the Extension Study Course in Science of Mind, and it's now a 4-volume set, but it covers all of the information that Holmes had in the original Holmes study. And in each lesson, there's a letter from Dr. Holmes, and he talks about the information that he wants you to not only learn, but to really embody with that particular lesson. And then subsequent to the lesson itself, there are some supplemental stories or additions to each lesson. And in the early part of the series, they're based on the supplements are based on a book by Thomas Troward called Bible Mystery and Bible Meaning. Troward's an interesting person if you're not real familiar with New Thought, and particularly if you're not familiar with science of mind, religious science. Judge Thomas Troward may not be someone that you're familiar with, but he was a significant thinker, and he was a significant force in the early days of New Thought. He was an Englishman. He was a judge, and when he retired, he'd been in India, and when he retired, he returned back to England, and he began sharing a lot of the spiritual understanding that he had developed over the years. For Ernest Holmes, it came at a critical time as he was putting together, his idea, his understanding of this thing that ultimately became science of mind, religious science. And so in the home studies courses, the first, about 10 or 12 lessons has a supplement that's based on this book. The interesting thing about the book is it was Judge Troward's understanding of the Bible from a metaphysical interpretation. Like I say, he was a scholar. He spent a lot of time studying. He learned some of the original languages, and so if you're a New Thought metaphysical student, I highly recommend that you pick up the book and familiarize yourself with it if you haven't before. I will give you a warning, Troward's a little bit of a difficult read, but it's worth taking the time. Anyway, in this particular series I was talking about, it's from chapter 10 out of Bible Mystery, Bible Meaning, which is entitled The Wisdom of Jesus. And in this particular chapter, what we're focused on is this thing called the law. And I spent the last show we did, we talked about this thing called the law. And for me, as a new student to New Thought, I just and I guess maybe that's one reason why I'm taking the time to really kind of go through this. I understood what people were teaching when they talked about the law, but I just couldn't really grasp really get an embodiment of what this thing we call the law is. And for me, one of the earliest understandings that made sense, I'm going to share this with you because if you've not really gotten into it, think about it. We talk about God, we talk about first cause, the spirit part of God, okay? We talk about the material creation. We refer to this as the body of God. Well, there's something between the creator and the creation, and that is the process that takes place. We often talk about when spirit or God thinks, creation takes place. Troward tells us in Bible Mystery, Bible Meaning, and we've seen it in other places where, in the beginning, in Genesis, we talk about, in the beginning was God, and God created. Understanding that if God was all there was in the beginning, then what God created, God became its creation, if you will. Well, there's that something between the thought and the creation, the body. And this is where this thing that we call the law exists, between the thought and the thing. It's kind of the process, if you will, but it's more than that. It's impersonal in that it responds. It's subjective. It does not have any volition, and it's oftentimes referred to as the law of cause and effect, which is probably the best overall name for it. We have other names that we talk about, various aspects of it. I mentioned that in the last class. The law of attraction, various other laws, but ultimately the law of cause and effect, and God being the first cause, the cause of all that is, and materiality, the universe and all of creation, basically being the effect. The law is what takes place between that. Now that's fine if we're talking kind of reflectively on God and stuff like that. But when we begin to bring it down into our life, to our personal life, and this is where it becomes very important that we at least have some grasp of what this law is, because it's like I said in the last class, it's like the law of gravity. We don't think about the law of gravity, but we never are free of the law of gravity, if you will. It's always there. We don't think about it. We go about our daily life. We make sure that we don't step off something too high that we can't, brace ourselves. We use ladders to climb and so on and so forth. Jump out of airplanes, we have a parachute. The law of cause and effect, the great law, is always with us too. One of the things that we understand in New Thought is that when the Bible tells us that we were created in the likeness and the image of God, that we weren't something separate from. Again, there was God, creation. Creation is God as God's creation. Therefore, as us, in the likeness and the image, humanity, that we are, if you will, and for some people this may be a bit of a stretch, but imagine, if you will, that if God is all there is, and God creates all that is, and there's nothing else, then it's all God in some form. And that's not too much of a stretch. We've understood spiritually that we're created in the likeness and the image, and we realize that the likeness and the image is, we're not talking about what we see in the mirror, we're talking about something else. What is that something else we're talking about? Well, what we're talking about is the essence, the truth, as we say in New Thought, of who and what we are. That's the spiritual being of us. We often say as we go through our prayer work that there's one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is our life now. In other words, life and all that it is, energy and all it is, creation and all that it is God expressing. And there's many reasons that we talk about how this comes about. And we'll be talking about this in other classes, but for the law, imagine that in the beginning, God, this consciousness, this infiniteness, and and I say it, not him. Okay. Why do I say it, not him? The Bible refers to God as him. Well, that's the way the Bible was written in the lexicon, in the context of the day. But God is neither male nor female. God is all that is, male and female, all of it. So, as God creates, in the beginning, we got all this stuff, and we get evolution. It goes on, and at some point in time we get life. That goes on. At some point in time we get some level of consciousness, and that goes on. At some point in time we get humanity. We talk about this in New Thought. It's kind of an important concept, because that's the moment when we realize what we often say is our I am moment, humanity. We have recognized ourselves as individualized consciousness. And I'm going to take our first break right there, and I will see you when we come back.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies. Are you or a member of your family beginning to show early signs of forgetfulness that may be Alzheimer's or dementia? The only way to be sure is through an expensive brain scan, and most insurance carriers will not pay the $5,000 cost. Dr. Parminder Bhatia of the Neuropain Medical Center is helping in a clinical trial for those with memory problems, dementia, or mild Alzheimer's disease. Those accepted into the trial will have all costs paid for, from diagnosis to evaluations and trial medicine. There is no cost for those who are accepted in the trial, and there may even be some compensation for the patient's time and travel. For more information, call 559-437-9700, extension 310, and visit neuropain.com. Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe, and see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
I'm Greg Steen, your host for the Truth for Seniors show. Glad you're joining us today, and coming to you from Central Valley Talk in the heart of Fresno. So every Wednesday at 2 you can find us, and we'll be here giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible, bringing you experts, as we've promised, from lots of different fields related to seniors, senior needs, the caregiver needs, and everything that goes with that. So if you're looking for the right information and timely information, this is the place to be.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week, because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Here's a chance to do your part to improve the air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. The wood, gas, or pellet burning fireplace inserts and stoves from Ponderosa Hearth and Home are as energy efficient as they are beautiful. We supply the best brands and models to perfectly fit the decor of your home. Our products have been warming homes in Clovis, California since 1980. Rush to your phone and call right away, 559-298-1610, and visit us online at phh-clovis.com.
Connect with Dr. Alan Hedberg. Watch Doctor Teach Me to Parent on CentralValleyTalk.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen to The Psychology Report anytime at thepsychologyreport.buzzsprout.com. Visit booksbyhedberg.com and order a book for your personal growth. And join the conversation on twitter.com/Alan G. Hedberg.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. And we're talking about the law, metaphysically, from a New Thought perspective. And so as we ended the first segment, I said, I just gave a brief rundown, in the beginning God created, we go through evolution, we get to the point of humanity and that what we call our I am moment. And in that moment, humanity began to recognize its individuality. It's an amazing thing in consciousness and in spirituality that at some point, consciousness began to recognize itself as being conscious in living reality in this thing that we call reality, this physical life. And as exciting as that is, as a practitioner of New Thought, as someone that looks at God as being all that is, that's also the point where the expression of each individual person recognizing their individuality, it's also God recognizing itself as that individual person. It's an amazing thing when you think about it. We're not taught to think about it necessarily because generally spiritual teachings in society don't really tend in that direction. Although if you look at spiritual teachings throughout history, you'll find that they're in some form. And it's an amazing thing. And just a side note that I always like to kind of pause and reflect on. But we come to our I am moment. What does that mean for each of us? We recognize that we are individualized. But as individual beings, when we live in a physical reality, and when we see life only as a materialistic experience, there's like part of us that is not included in the equation. And that part of us is the spiritual part of us. We are created, we're told, in the likeness and the image of God, and that's the spiritual part of us that expresses through this physical being. And before I went to the break, I went through this. We say there's one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life now. That part of the thing where we say that life is perfect. You look around at humanity and say, well, it doesn't look too perfect to me. I mean, we see a lot of stuff in the world, right? Well, how is that we can express and accept an expression of a divine perfection with all the chaos we see in the world? And this is where, as we begin to look at this thing that we call the law, becomes very important for us as individuals, but also very important to humanity as a whole. Because the law is the what is that happens. The law is that what we think about, created in the likeness and the image of God. As God, we say, as God thinks, creation takes place, first cause. If we're a microcosm, if you will, a downsized version of that, God expressing as each of us individually, as a center of God consciousness, as a center in the infiniteness of God consciousness, each and every one of us, that makes what God is as the creative force, the first cause of all that is, part of our beingness, which means we have within us this life that is creative, that has the ability to create. That when we begin to start our spiritual journey, it starts with our recognition that life is not just materiality, that there's something behind life, something more than life, if you will. We start that journey, we begin to kind of peel back the layers of the onion of discovery of our spiritual truth, and we begin to see that one life, and I've explained this to people in a way, and I'm kind of getting off track, but I want to share this with you anyway. At some point during the evolutionary process, the gases come together and planets and stars are formed, and this thing that we call Earth existed as a very unhospitable place. And there was no life on it. And there was gases and there was all sorts of things taking place and nothing could live. But something happened at some point. The precursors to what we call life came together, and that first thing that we call life began. And you may want to take it back to a single-cell organism, but we'll just start with life as a single-cell organism because that's where it really began. Science tells us that those single-cell organisms lived for a long period of time, and there was just nothing else, just the single-cell organisms. And through process of evolution, single-cell organisms began to do or develop specific tasks, and they kind of came together, if you will, and formed a group of multi-cell organisms, and so on and so forth. The multi-cell organisms grew, and that's one part of the story. But the other part of the story is there was at one point on this planet where there was no life, and then there was a point where there was life. Now, if that happened with one single-cell organism or with a group of stuff, I don't know, and it's not really that important. But there was a point where there was no life, and then there was a point where there was life. And once we get to the single-cell organism, it makes it easy to explain and easy to understand. Because as a single-cell organism, it had life. Basic, rudimentary, but it had life. At some point, it multiplied. And it did that by splitting. One cell became two cells. And they split, and two cells became four, and so on and so forth, before there was any differentiation. But that first cell, the life in that first cell, as they split off to become two cells, this is not new life. This is the life of the original cell that is now part of the second cell. And as they split, that same life continued. So when we talk about one life, there really is but one life that has never passed from Earth. It has grown, it has evolved in the organisms, and it has reached a point to where we now have humanity and we have consciousness and conscious awareness, but it's still that same life. I mean, it may be, a little bit of a stretch of the mind, but if you sit down and think about it, at no time did life ever cease on this planet, and at no time did new life, separate from the original life, come about. So all this life is still that one life, just growing, expanding, and consciousness coming in at some point. And now when we become consciously aware as individual beings, that we become aware of our individualness, we become aware of the fact that we have choice, and we become aware of the fact that there's more to life than just materiality. And that's, like I say, that's where we started our spiritual journey. Throughout all of this is the divine principle creating, God creating, continuing to create, continuing to see this life expand. But this life is this one life, this one God, this infiniteness. It cannot have within itself anything that opposes it, because at an infinite level, if there's opposition, then there's destruction. And on an infinite level, what that means is you don't have an infinite. You got one thing and one other thing. And spiritually, that's been the story for a long time, that was taught that there's one thing, God, and there's one thing in opposition to God. And depending on the various spiritual teachings, we have various names for it. But the truth is, there's just this one that we call God, that is the creator of all it is. One life, that life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life now. And here we are at that perfect thing again. We look around the world. We say, okay, but it's not perfect. We're not seeing a perfect representation of this thing that we call a perfect God. And if we're saying that God is all there is, how can we have all this stuff that is seemingly, I'll just say, seemingly kind of anti-God principle, if you will. And we give that a name. We call it evil. And it comes in many forms. But actually, it also is a function of the law. And the way this understanding of this thing that we call the law works is that as we think, as a microcosm of God, the law responds to what it is that we think. And the law is that thing between the thought and the thing. In other words, it's the creative process. So as I'm thinking, and it's not so much just what I'm thinking in my conscious mind, but it's what I'm thinking in my whole mentality, my subjective mind. And trend of thinking becomes most important when we understand how the law works in our life. But as we think, the law is responding. Well, if I'm thinking like, I don't like you, for example, then the law is creating within me a belief, if you will, that you are somewhat separate from me. Okay? And if you're separate from me, and if there's but one and that one is God, and all life is an expression of God, there can't be any separation. Now, you may think I'm really nice people, but maybe I don't like you. I have effectively separated myself out, not literally, but effectively, separated myself out from my connectedness with Source, with God. As I do that, as I find things to dislike in the world, as I look at the world through the fear mechanism, which served me well as I was evolving as a non-conscious being, but looking out in the world today as a conscious being, still being led by that fear mechanism, I see limitation, I see lack, I see competition, I see all these things to be afraid of, and this whole level of consciousness kind of takes up a good portion of my mentality, the trend of thought. And so as an individual, there's me versus the world, or me and my tribe, my family versus the world. When we begin to draw those lines, we're creating a sense, if you will, in the world of separateness. And we talk about this in New Thought as race consciousness. And that's a story for another day too. But basically, imagine, if you will, that all thought is still basically available to humanity. That there is something beyond. There's a mind. Jung called it the oversoul, I think it was. Or maybe that was Emerson, I don't know. Jung called it the collective consciousness. Emerson called it the oversoul. But an idea that all thought basically is still there. Thoughts of limitation, lack, and so on and so forth. But thoughts are creative. And so as I am seeing limitation in the world, I'm creating for myself an experience of limitation. If I'm seeing enemies in the world, I'm creating for myself enemies. And I bring that consciousness into the world. Well, I don't do it. The law does it. The law does it in response to me. So that takes us back to this thing we call the law. The law responds to thought, and it is the creative process, if you will, between the thought and the thing. When we're beginning our spiritual journey, and we begin to look at this thing called the law, we have to understand that it's all some aspect of the greater whole that we call God. There's nothing that's separate from God. But we look at God from different, we have a way of defining things, don't we? Do we compartmentalize them, if you will? And so we say there's God the Spirit, right? And then God the law, and then God the body. But it's all really just God expressing itself. But in the spirit part, the consciousness part, thinking part, if you will, that's where the creative thoughts take place. The law, the subjective part of God, that's where the process between the creative thought and the physical reality of it is. Now, when I say physical reality, understand that we're not talking just physical things. We're also talking about conditions. We're talking about experiences. Because God is everything. God is physical. God is conditions. God is effects. God is feelings. God is circumstances. In other words, God is, period. It's a lot to think about. We don't have to really go there, but we can. However, looking back at the law, and I've had a couple weeks to think about this, so I'm covering a lot of stuff in my mind that I want to share. We may take another class or two, another show or two to get through this. But the idea is, and Troward says this, he points out that perfect liberty of the individual must be in accordance with the will of law. One life, that life is God, that life is perfect, that life is our life. Perfect shows up again. How can we have perfect liberty, right? Well, we have perfect liberty, one, because as God expressing through us as consciousness, we have independent volition. Having independent volition means that we have the ability to make choices in our life. And why is it that God would create us to make choices that are not necessarily in alignment, if you will, in accord with the divine principle? And we can take that back, and I think I covered this last time, but we'll just for right now. If you understand from the very basic, as we look at this thing that we call God, one of the major ways that we define this is this word called love. And love is much more than often we give thought to. But let's just for the moment talk about love as being peace and harmony, goodness, beauty, those types of things, right? Those things that resonate with our heart, if you will. Okay, so if God is perfect, God creates a perfect creation, and we're in this life with all this stuff, limitation, lack, chaos, trauma, drama, and all this sort of stuff. How does that work? Because we are, as individuals, we have the ability to choose. We have the ability to choose, and we make choices, and the choices we make are based on thoughts that we think. Now, the thoughts that we think are based on our life experience. It's based on influence from this thing we call race consciousness. It's based on what we've been taught. It's based on what we hear in the news. It's based on everything that we've come into contact with, but a lot of it significantly is created during our growing years. And during our growing years, we're learning a lot about life. We come into life and we don't know what it is necessarily. We have to learn how to talk and walk and interact with the world and use our hands and oh my gosh, there's people that we interact with, and we become social beings and family beings and then societal beings and employment and on and all this stuff, right? We got all this stuff going on in our life. But at every step of the way, as we graduate from one thing to the next, we're learning new things about ourselves. If we learn those things at a level that we believe to be true, they become part of our belief system. As part of our belief system, they begin to define our reality experience. We're going to take our next break. We're going to talk about reality experience when we come back, and we'll move forward from there. I'll see you then.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies. Attend the Kearney Park Renaissance Fair November 10th and 11th from 10 a.m. Connect with Dr. Alan Hedberg. Watch Doctor Teach Me to Parent on CentralValleyTalk.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen to The Psychology Report anytime at thepsychologyreport.buzzsprout.com. Visit booksbyhedberg.com and order a book for your personal growth. And join the conversation on twitter.com/Alan G. Hedberg.
Certifying foster homes for placement of children suffering from abuse, neglect, and abandonment. To help, contact Lisa Caceres with Angels of Grace at 559-268-0000.
This is the home you've dreamed of. Located in the quaint city of Exeter, it offers estate-sized lots with stunning views of the Sierra Mountains. Yet is less than 15 miles to the city of Visalia. This retreat offers a sense of aloha and has unbelievable views from all three levels of this exquisite home, with decking on every level. The home, at nearly 5,000 square feet, has real wood flooring, a master suite on 2 levels, a formal living room with fireplace, formal dining room with inlaid wood, separate family room with a second fireplace, soaring ceilings, and a built-in bar. The kitchen features granite countertops, stainless steel appliances including a wine refrigerator, a large Genair cooktop, microwave, dishwasher, and double oven. The third level offers a large game room and huge walk-in closet. The backyard is an oasis with a pool, gazebo, and manicured walking paths. This home was built for entertaining and so much more. To buy this breathtaking home, call Kim McElhen at 559-707-7711. That's 559-707-7711.
Harness the power of the sun and cut your electric bill down to size with Soltech Solar. Call today and request a free quote at 559-325-6907 or visit soltechsolar.com.
Looking for work? Tired of minimum wage? For as low as $200, become certified as a forklift driver at the Certified Forklift Training Center. Call 559-325-8097 or visit cftc.net.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Steve Walling. from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno, California. So before we went to the break, I was saying that we grow up and we create these things that we call beliefs. And beliefs are really interesting things because they have a very strong tendency to be creative of the reality that we experience. And New Thought talked about this a long time ago. Psychology kind of got on board in the 60s, and it's a big part of something called cognitive behavioral therapy today. The idea of our beliefs create our reality. And when we talk about our beliefs creating our reality, the easiest way to understand that is we all have seen where two people will experience the same event and they'll come away with two different experiences of that event. Family picnics are great for that, if they still do family picnics today, where, you know, you get together 1 year and 3 or 4 years later you get together and 2 or 3 people talk about, you know, Aunt Bella or whatever that's there, and, you know, that particular flower dress that she wore, and someone else said, well, no, it wasn't a flower dress, it was a striped dress. And if you talk to those people, they will tell you that's what they saw. That was their experience. That was their reality, and that's because it exists in their memory as that. Not necessarily the what is, but for them, it's their truth, if you will. So our beliefs create our reality, but our beliefs don't necessarily live, if you will, in our conscious mind. They are there to a certain extent, but a lot of the things that we believe are there in a subconscious level, if you will. And psychology has, you know, great fun with all this kind of stuff, but the truth is that we have beliefs that we're not even aware of that we hold. And so we have these beliefs, and oftentimes they're limiting, and, you know, they're limiting because they're beliefs of less than-ness, or, you know, we've learned that because we're, you know, a certain person, a certain type of person, from a certain part of the world or whatever, that, you know, we have limitations for this, that, or the other, or maybe that we're exceptional and everybody else isn't. You know, that runs the gamut, but those are the beliefs that we hold. Everything that we do in our life is based on our beliefs because they create our reality. If they are limiting beliefs, and like I say, to a great extent for most people, they are limiting in some level, they also limit the life experience that we have. But we weren't created to live a limited life experience. Going back to this idea that God created us and expresses through us, the purpose of that expression, the purpose of us living this life, is not only express life, but to express life more abundantly. How do we do that in a world full of lack and limitation and so on? Well, you see, that's part of our spiritual journey, because as we begin to peel the layers back on this onion, we realize, okay, that we're not just separate from, that there's one. Did I say there's one? There's just one, and that one is God, and everything that is some part, some aspect of God, if you will. Okay, now, as that part expressing in this life, there's nothing that is less than. If you want to say we're all equal, well, that's fine. But we're not experiencing it. We're not experiencing it because we have limiting beliefs. We were gifted, and this is something that we can understand, that we were gifted with the potential to live life and to live it abundantly. This person, this teacher, this fellow that we called Jesus, he taught that. He says he came that we may live life and live it more abundantly. And this is what he was talking about. As Troward is teaching in Bible Mystery, Bible Meaning, he's talking about throughout part of this is the wisdom of Jesus, that what Jesus brought into the world was the teaching of the process of living life and living it more abundantly, that we each can do that. That it's done, when he says it's done unto us as we believe, if you put that in perspective, that your beliefs create your reality, it really is done unto you as you believe. So how would you like to live a different life than you're living? Well, you can change your beliefs. Not necessarily an easy process, but it's doable. And through the teachings of Jesus, through the teachings of New Thought, there are tools that are taught that open doors and tell us how to do it. Jesus taught this. He taught it in a way that was in context of the day that he lived, which in today's terminology doesn't necessarily make a smooth transition, but this is how people like Troward, Ernest Holmes, and various New Thought teachers, how they've taken these teachings that Jesus brought into the world and translate them into tools that we can use today. Troward says, the wisdom of Jesus teaches that we are made out of God, one life. That life is God, that life is perfect, that life is our life now. We have the ability, because we are created in the image and the likeness of God, we have that creativeness within ourselves. But we don't know it. We don't believe it. This is something that Jesus did know and did believe. This is something that he demonstrated. And as he demonstrated, he taught people that what he did, they could do, and they could do even greater things. As a matter of fact, for an extended period of time after he made his transition from this physical environment, there were a lot of the apostles, if you will, and spiritual individuals that were going around, and they were doing the same thing that Jesus did. Now, it became kind of out of fashion, if you will, at the time, because they began to teach that, if you're doing that, maybe you're connected with, the bad part, the evil part. A lot of stuff goes into the history of religion, and we can set that aside for right now, because when we look at what we do understand today, when we call it truth teachings, that there's one God, we are God expressed as us, and that all that God has available to it, basically on the grand level, we have available to us on the small level. But we have to learn that. We have to learn that at a level that we embody it as a belief. We have to take these beliefs and we have to put them into practice in our life. And as we do this, we see our life unfold in amazing ways. We can begin to create a lot of good and a lot of change. But the thing is, it's not about someone else, it's about us. It's about understanding that as we create our trend of thinking, that this thing we call the law responds, and it always responds. If I believe that I am whole, perfect, and complete, for example, then my life will begin to trend in a whole, perfect, and complete trend of life experience. If I believe that I'm less than, and this is important, if I believe that I'm less than, if I believe that I'm separate from, the law still responds and says, I'll give you a lot of less than this. I'll give you a lot of stuff. And this is how we get stuff in the world. It's still the law, it's still responding, but it's responding to a belief in things that are not in alignment or harmony with the divine principle, that which we call God, or that which we consider calling love. What Jesus was teaching at the time was, as we begin to put these principles into practice, we have to align ourselves with the divine principle, with God. If we don't, then we have basically kept ourselves separate from, limited ourselves, and therefore we experience a less than life experience. Not a good thing. But why is it in today's world, in this time, in this place, with all the great technology that we have, that we're not seeing greater good experience in the world? We're not seeing greater good because there's a lot of people that don't believe in it. There's a lot of people that believe in limitation. There's a lot of people that believe in otherness. The law responds. If you believe in otherness, if you have you versus somebody else, the law says, I'll give you more to have versus. It will hold you accountable for your separateness. The law of cause and effect. We begin to look at it. The cause, my belief, the effect, my reality experience. If I want to change my reality experience, I have to change the cause. I have to change my belief. That's why New Thought often teaches, they use the phrase, change your thinking, change your life, or change your beliefs, change your life. The same thing. Where are you at? Where are you at in your life experience? If you believe in less than, if you believe that you have enemies, if you believe that you have to overcome somebody or defeat somebody, if you believe that life is meant to be a struggle, the law will respond positively in your life by giving you all the negative things that you believe in. Law is a very powerful thing. Our understanding of it is very critical as we, not only as we grow individually in our life, not only as we begin to realize that we can live life and live it more abundantly, more successfully, but it's important for our understanding so that we can create a greater, more powerful, more cohesive life experience for the totality of humanity. And we have that ability, that capability, and it's been talked about from time to time. It's gotten lost from time to time, but it's here today, and there are people talking about it and teaching it. There's one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life, and we can move forward with that based on our beliefs, our reality. Troward goes on to say, and Holmes talks about it, he says, sin, mistake, and punishment, consequences, are representative of an experience built upon the concept of disunion with good, disunion from God, separation from God, separating ourselves out. Anytime that I feel that I have to take something, or have to do something in the way of harm, if you will, to another being, another human being, I have essentially separated myself out. That's why, and I shared this in the last show on this, the idea when Jesus was asked, he said, there's two things that we got to, on these two things, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, all the laws of the prophet hang, that we love God with all that we are, and we love our neighbors, we love ourselves. Very simple. If God is all that is, and we love ourselves, we love God with all that we are, and we love our neighbors as ourselves, there's nothing in there. There's no wiggle room. There's no allowance, if you will, for any less than this. But a lot of us live with a concept of less than this. We're going to take our last break, and I'll see you when we come back.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies. Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe. And see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
I'm Greg Steen, your host for the Truth for Seniors show. Glad you're joining us today and coming to you from Central Valley Talk in the heart of Fresno. So every Wednesday at 2 you can find us, and we'll be here giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible, bringing you experts, as we promised, from lots of different fields related to seniors, senior needs, the caregiver needs, and everything that goes with that. So if you're looking for the right information and timely information, this is the place to be.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week, because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California.
Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. So we're talking about the law and our beliefs and the creation of our life experience being, whether it be harmonious expression or whether it be one that's rather disruptive. Understand that when we talk about God, we say God is love, and all is law, because they go hand in hand. Our relationship to that is how we understand that and what we know and how we utilize it in our life. And you know that old adage that ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, that definitely plays out here in our life experience. Just because we're not familiar with the spiritual law of cause and effect doesn't mean that we're not experiencing the causes and the effects, if you will, in our life. So as we make a choice to begin to walk a spiritual path, to learn more of our truth, to learn more of truth, to learn more about our understanding of creation and this thing that we call God, this thing that we call life, we begin to understand that we individually have a greater role and responsibility into how we experience and how we express our life. It's important that we understand that, because oftentimes people don't think about the concept of personal responsibility, if you will, in the life that they create. And they think that the life that they created oftentimes is subject to their life story, the dramas they had in their life, the events going on around them, various and sundry of other things. All that stuff is external. When we begin to make our connection with the truth, and we find that connection within ourselves, we begin to take responsibility for what goes on in this wonderful thing that we call our mind, and we begin to consciously make choices to align ourselves with divine principles, with this thing we call love. Then we'll begin to see things unfold in our life a little bit differently than they did when we were just living life at a random level, if you will. But we have to make that choice. Now, we all know some individuals that they have that blessed life, that miracle life, if you will. Everything seems to go good for them. But if you break it down, you begin to see that what goes on in their mind is reflected in their life. They see good, they see miracles, they see abundance, they see great things happening. We all know people that suffer, and they all have a reason for it, And I'm not trying to belittle anybody, because as I said in the beginning of the show today, our beliefs create our reality, and for somebody that's suffering, that's their reality, that's truth for them. But it's not the truth. Oftentimes, talking to people like this, it's hard for them to conceptualize a life any other and any different than what they're experiencing. But the truth is, there is a potential. We were created in the image and the likeness of God. The divine principle exists within us, and we can make change. But we have to make that choice. So wherever someone is at that point in their life experience, that's where they're at. And we honor and we respect that. But as we move forward, as we begin to decide that maybe there's more to life, then we have to begin to accept responsibility for what's going on in our day-to-day life experience as we experience it through the thinking, the trend of thought that we hold in our minds. And Ernest Holmes referred to this as right thinking. You can call it whatever you want. There's a lot of books that are written, a lot of tools that we can use, and we teach things like affirmations and meditation and visualization and affirmative prayer, and all those things are important tools that we can put in our toolbox. But we have to understand that the tools that we're using in our toolbox help to bring us into alignment with this thing we call love and this thing we call the law. So, if you are a New Thought student, and this idea of the law for you is been something that you've had, maybe a little bit of an issue kind of really wrapping your mind around it. I hope that the last show and this show has kind of given you some food for thought. The thing we understand is between the creative thought, the cause, and the condition, the effect. This is the area where the law is, and it's absolute. Now, that's good and bad. Before we close out, I want to clarify something. If we're going along and things aren't necessarily going so good in our life, right? We decide we're going to make some changes, and we begin to work on it. We say, okay, there's this law response, but what about, and we can list the things that maybe we've set causative issues into effect in our life, and we're saying, these effects are out there, they're waiting for me, so to speak. This is something that, was referred to as karma, if you will. And Ernest Holmes addressed the idea of karma. And the thing is, karma, as he says, is not kismet. In other words, things that we set into causes, that we set into motion, we can bring to a halt by changing our position, if you will, within the law. Now, that doesn't mean that if we've treated some people poorly that we're not going to be subject to the effects of our ill treatment. But it does mean that within the law, on our spiritual journey, we can change our position. And we can grow and go from where we're at rather than just being subject to a continued whatever it is that we're subject to, okay? And we all have our stuff, right? So, the so-called miracles of Jesus were logical outcomes of his spiritual wisdom. They were not miracles, but, as Holmes says, mathematical manifestations of the creative power of a man's thought. And of a man's thought is of any man, any person. Man, he used the word man or woman. Thought is creative. Not a little bit. All thought is creative. So, we want to change our life, we begin to change our thinking. As we change our thinking, we change our place within the law. And the law always works. And it always works for us as we have put it out there. But we want to create, we want to experience, we want to have more peace, harmony, abundance, freedom, greater life experience. That's on us. It's not on the outside. It's not on the conditions of the community. It's not on the conditions of the family or work or whatever. The thing about the creation is, when we're dealing with first cause, when we're dealing with God, no antecedent, no preceding conditions need to be in effect for our intention to express, to demonstrate, to manifest in our life. It does so at the level of our belief. So we can build our belief. If we believe a little bit, we build a little bit. We experience a little bit, we can believe a little bit more. The law always responds. For some people, they can make a big leap, and for some people, it's a journey. It's that journey of 1,000 miles that begins with the first step, but it's our journey. When we look out into the world and we see chaos, it's not about telling the world how it needs to change. It's about looking within ourselves, seeing the Christ consciousness, the God consciousness, if you will, within ourselves, and seeking to create a better life for ourselves. And as we do so, the world will change. Pretty simple, or not, depending on us. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I've kind of had fun. We may pick up and talk about some more stuff. I've been spending a little time revisiting Judge Tord and a lot of the things that he brought into the metaphysical teachings years ago that are as powerful today as the day that he spoke them. And, of course, I'll answer questions if you send me emails if you had questions. And, I appreciate you watching the show. I look forward to you joining us again when we come back. And as you go through the week, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Because wherever you are, God is there. All is well. Have a great time, my friends. I'll see you when I come back. Blessings.
CentralValleyTalk.com.